Welcome Rotarians and guests to the Rotary Club of Seattle, the fourth oldest and one of the world's largest Rotary clubs, where we embrace service above self and are connecting for good. I say these words every week, and today I mean them more than ever. Our community, our nation, and indeed our world needs Rotarians, needs each of us to walk our talk, to demonstrate the ideals of service, and to renew our commitment for good. How fitting then that today our greatest role models are in the room with us, our members who are veterans. We observe Veterans Day 2016 today, and in so doing, we will be honoring the members of our club who are veterans. They have served us and served us well. We are not alone in this. We will shine our Rotary spotlight on a corporate citizen that is also an advocate and champion for our veterans. Our member, Arnie Ness, and Arnie, I'm going to invite you to come up. He served in the National Guard, and he is going to launch our meeting today with a trumpet fanfare. Immediately following, our immediate past Vice President for Programs, Eric Slabaugh, will launch us into our Veterans Tribute. But first, Arnie.
Okay, I do well need this. President Kathy asked me, this isn't just a fanfare, it's the first 8 bars of every service, armed service that this country has. Okay, let's hope. One more.
Truly, bravo. I want to offer the following invocation, but before I do, I'd just like to say, I am grateful I live in a nation where I'm actually able to vote, regardless of the outcome, regardless of who I voted for is elected or not, and as so often as the case is not. I am thankful for that, and I'm thankful that this election season is in the rearview mirror. With that, I offer this invocation. Dear Lord, we pray that our leaders in this room, in this city, in our region, of our state, and of our nation would display constraint, wisdom, and grace, and that we in turn would extend grace when they don't. Help us seek understanding before seeking to be understood, especially when we disagree, and please empower us to remain civil and compassionate in our disputes. Help us all to live up to the four-way test, to do the right thing, without expectation of personal gain, but because it is the right thing. Amen. Please be seated. It is with joy that I have been asked on this Veterans Day program to honor the veterans among us. I've attended a number of naval retirements, and there is an often followed tradition when a tenured member of the Navy retires to read the poem, The Watch. I think its tenor speaks volumes to the sacrifices made by the men and women of our armed services that wear their uniform, the uniforms of our nation, and the sacrifices made by their families. For those in the Navy, please forgive me, I've changed the wording to honor all of our servicemen and women. My modified version of the watch. For years, they have stood the watch. While some of us were in our bunks at night, they stood the watch. While some of us were in school learning our trade, they stood the watch. Yes, even before some of us were born into this world, they stood the watch. In those years when the storm clouds of war were seen brewing on the horizon of history, they stood the watch. Many times they cast an eye homeward to see their families standing there, needing their guidance and their help, needing that hand to hold on during hard times. But still, they stood the watch. They stood the watch for years. They stood the watch so that we, our families, and our fellow countrymen could sleep soundly in safety each evening, every night, knowing that they stood the watch.
Well, I'm honored to introduce another veteran member of our club, Jimmy Collins. Jimmy is an Army man, having served locally at Joint Base Lewis McChord. Come on up, Jimmy. Where he achieved the top rank of Major General. Among his civilian career highlights was over 2 decades at the Weyerhaeuser Corporation, where he was served as Vice President of Procurement and Energy. Regionally, he's a member of several executive advisory boards for industry and community interests. Right now, currently, he serves as the board chair for Hire America's Heroes. Jimmy's been a member of our club for a little over 3 years, had really jumped in with both feet. In fact, he's serving presently as a first-year board member on our board of directors. Jimmy's going to be introducing our guest speaker, but before I turn the mic over to him, I want to thank you for your service to our country, to our business community, to our club, and for your help with today's program. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, President Kathy, for that generous introduction. You know, as Kathy kind of indicated, one of my passions really is excellent employment for military job seekers. And that category I define as people that are veterans, that served honorably, those that continue to serve in either the National Guard, as Arnie did, or in the Federal Reserve Forces of all of our services, and their spouses. Actually, they make a terrific body of talent. Today, by the way, we didn't call them out, but I'd like for you to help me welcome those Starbucks employees who are members of their Armed Forces Network. Could you folks stand so we could see you? In addition to, having military service on their resume, they volunteer to do special extra things to help Starbucks promote in the community their good works. And I've personally been privileged to work with Starbucks over the past 9 years. When I was at Weyerhaeuser, we had a Starbucks executive that joined with me and some other companies to help begin Hire America's Heroes. And so I've had an opportunity to observe at close range both the nature of the activity and then the results that they achieve. Today, I'm delighted to introduce a friend who will share the great story of such employment at Starbucks, a local coffee company. John Kelly, who will be up here in a moment, is well prepared for his role. Just 3 quick factoids. He served on Capitol Hill as a staffer and learned what it was like to make the sausage that we consume here in our nation. He worked at Starbucks or at Microsoft as an executive advancing military and veterans causes, and then he was recognized and acquired by Starbucks for his talent, and during the past 3 years, he's been leading social impact initiatives. John will be up in a moment, but we're going to begin with a brief video to just give you the flavor of what's going on at the coffee company. So could you roll the video, please, Steve?
The country has made over many, many years a solemn promise that when we send our young men and women to war in harm's way, we are going to take care of them when they come home.
After all that time that I spent in the infantry, it was very daunting thinking about getting out and finding a career. I can't put on a resume that I can assault an enemy fortification or that I can lead a squad of 12 and take as much territory as I want and hold it for as long as I want. That doesn't work in a resume.
We as a company felt strongly that these are extraordinary young people who have so much to offer.
You have a great day.
Yeah.
How do we help them see themselves in a green apron, and their skill set actually transitions to making a great cup of coffee and connecting very well with other partners and being part of a team?
I didn't know that my skills could translate, and here I am managing a Starbucks.
My husband was in the Air Force for 8 years. After his transition, he was able to come to Starbucks and work as a barista so that he could go through culinary school and still have some income to help us out.
Sure, would that be all?
There's actually probably nothing you can do better for a military family than hire a military spouse.
Me and my husband have been married for almost 3 years. For me, he's the National Guard. When you go to work, you want to feel sort of a personal connection to what you're doing, and I feel like these aprons definitely do that for me.
Being married to a military member that gives back to their country every day, to have that recognized, that makes me feel really special to be a part of that.
The numbers don't tell the story. The story is the unbelievable heart, conscience, integrity, leadership skills of the people that we have been fortunate enough to bring into our company.
I don't think it's just about hiring 10,000 veterans and checking off a number and saying, hey, we're done. I think it's about working together to help bridge the gap in the military community and the civilian community.
We can't just focus on what happens in the store. We reach out and take care of our community just like they come in and take care of us.
So it is personal for me to do what's right for the country, and in this case specifically to do what's right for veterans and their families. We are a better company the last 2 years and going forward by having veterans and their families be part of the Starbucks culture. This is a mini celebration for all the things you do for the company and all the things that you and your family have done and sacrificed for the country.
When I saw that wall today, and my name's there, right, for roll call, it was definitely humbling. It just yells thank you. And at the end of the day, when you serve, that's all you want.
In all my travels to the bases and all the people I've met, there is a common statement I kept hearing. I was just doing my job, and I would do it again.
I feel very fortunate to work for an organization that makes it personal in so many ways.
I wear my dog tag every day.
We are deeply committed to having veterans and veteran spouses in the organization, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to honor the service, the extraordinary young men and women who are wearing the cloth of the nation.
Thank you, Rotarians. It's quite an honor to be here today and celebrate our veterans and military spouses. And I just want to say, I have one indicator. We're all so busy sometimes, you don't even know what event you're going to, and you get busy and you show up and you're like, what is this event? What is this event? I always judge whether I'm at the right event if Jimmy Collins is in the room. And that I know it's a good cause. So Major General Collins has been a part of our journey at Starbucks, which is I'm privileged to talk a little bit about today, and then really open it up to have a conversation about everything that's going on, both on military and veterans affairs at Starbucks, but also on any other issue that you might want to talk about in Starbucks. So, like you, it was interesting thinking about last night. I know it's not a political organization, don't worry. But I was thinking about the results last night, and I was thinking we are headquartered in downtown Seattle. We have a lot of young people. Tomorrow morning is going to be rough. I was not prepared for what I saw this morning. There were Starbucks partners huddled in masses on the floor, pulling their hair out, ordering a lot of dairy product, chestnut praline lattes, a lot of comfort food. It was rough. A lot of people agonizing over last night's elections, except for one group. And it's not because of the way they voted. I couldn't help but notice this morning that our veterans had kind of a different look. They had sort of a sharpness to their eyes. They had kind of a business as usual. For them, and I'm not talking about the way they voted, I don't have any idea. Well, I have some idea, and it's all over the place. But they had perspective. They have seen harder nights. So I couldn't help but notice that today, and what an interesting contrast, and so much of what Starbucks is experiencing is culturally bringing that military culture and the non-military culture together. If Starbucks can do it in Seattle and in our 10,000 locations around the United States, then anyone can do it. And we've only been at it for a little while. In fact, I was fortunate enough in the first hour of my employment at Starbucks to find myself in my first meeting with Howard Schultz and our senior leadership team. And I was clueless. I was unsure whether I had made the right decision to leave Microsoft. But here I was in this meeting. I didn't know what the agenda was. And I started hearing our Armed Forces Network, some of whom are here today, talking to our senior leadership team and appealing to them to say, look, we are missing an opportunity to take advantage of the extraordinary talent and diversity of the 2.5 million people transitioning into civilian life over the next 5 years. What can we do more? What is our role and responsibility as a corporation? That's Starbucks' question about so many of the things we step up to do. And here were our partners who are already employed. We knew we were already hiring hundreds of veterans and military spouses, but they were telling our senior leadership team and Howard Schultz, you could do more. And if you're smart, you'll take advantage of this. And I witnessed a conversation, again, first hour of my employment at Starbucks. I witnessed a remarkable conversation and a back and forth between our military veterans and spouses and the rest of us who had not served and who really didn't understand. We're part of that 99% that have not served and have not experienced. And especially here in Seattle and at Starbucks, pretty classic, not many people in that room had served. And a question, why? Why would we hire veterans? What do they have to offer? What's the purpose here? And the answers were a very healthy discussion. And they said, don't hire them out of a sense of patriotic duty. Don't hire them out of pity. Hire them because they're great for business. And you know who else is great for business? Their families. Especially at a company that views community as essential, strong communities, community service, and our impact in those neighborhoods as critical to our success. We did not know, we had missed the boat. We did not know that their values and our values were actually more aligned than we ever had imagined. That sense of service is something that we strive for every day and what we're looking for our own partners. And we didn't realize, we had missed it. And so what did we do? We talked to Secretary Gates, who was on our board. Talked to General Peter Corelli, absolute extraordinary individual right here in Seattle to tell us more. And people like Jimmy Collins to come in and tell us more about what were we missing and what should we do and why. So we made a big bet right there in that room. We didn't leave that room. And we're here with the U.S. business. They got a lot going on, holidays coming up. That's a tough time for retail, as you know. And the business said, all right, what are we going to do? What are we going to announce? And we came up with a pretty big number, to hire 10,000 in 5 years. We had no idea whether we could make that happen. We did not have the expertise, we didn't know much, but we also concluded, very importantly, it wasn't about the number. In fact, you could hit the number and fail. What we decided to do was to make sure that we were not just hiring, but that we are honoring. and that we were creating a culture where military veterans and their spouses felt welcomed, celebrated, and understood and appreciated, so that they could do what they do best, which is to serve. And our journey has been an extraordinary one. And we have benefited far more. I mean, I hear these words of appreciation by some of those in that video, and to the rest of us who have been on the receiving end, we have benefited as an enterprise in so many ways that we never anticipated. So our gratitude is not just personal, it's in the numbers. They are good for business. In our military family stores, we open more than 30 military family stores around bases. These are creating environments that are so welcoming for a lot of spouses who might have family that are deployed. They are places where we put artwork and symbols that matter to this community. Without asking permission, we put a flag on an apron, and we started handing it out to our partners who are veterans and military spouse. You're not supposed to put, this Dan Mead Smith, you're not going to report this, right? Okay. You're not supposed to put anything on the apron, all right? The green apron, that is sacred. That's our symbol. But we decided, you know what? I think our veterans and our military spouses, they deserve a little flag to symbolize that. We didn't ask permission, and it's been one of the greatest success stories. And every day, our managers are handing out patriotic aprons to new partners and new military spouses in recognition if they want one. And it has transformed and had conversations. One of my favorite ones was when an elder partner, a little bit more senior in years, sent an email, and he was down in Miami, and he works in a drive-through, and we had sent him a patriotic apron with his name and his service on it. And he emailed, he said, I wore my apron today. And I served somebody, and I had served the same customer time and time again, and they said, oh, I had no idea you had served. And he said, then something happened for the first time in 40 years. Somebody thanked me for my service. So a little moment like that, that's what makes Starbucks important for so many people. It's what makes us tick. And recognizing and honoring that culture is so much important, for whom symbols matter a great deal. They fight for symbols. And learning from them, and that has benefited our culture. Our culture is so much better for both the men and women that are here today, that work with us at our headquarters, but also throughout our 10,000 stores. And by the way, that number that you saw of 5,000, we're at more than 8,000 today. We're going to blow through that number more than a year and a half ahead of time. Yeah. We've done some other crazy things too. We had a concert on Veterans Day. We realized there's not a big concert in Washington, D.C. on Veterans Day. That's a mistake. So we put on a little concert with HBO. 800,000 people showed up. That was unexpected. That was absolutely incredible. We've done a book, For Love of Country, extraordinary stories of extraordinary men and women in the field, as well as how they serve in their community just like you do. And we have an honor wall. Just like many of you all, we have an honor wall. The most transformative thing that happened for us was being invited behind the gates at JBLM. Helped us make it real. We did not know, as I said, most of our operators are part of that 99%, but by General Dahl and others, General Lanza after him, inviting us behind the gates of JBLM, and our being willing to try it and getting really uncomfortable, and going down and seeing them work in their environment, our operators woke up and they realized they saw groups of young men and women working with equipment under highly stressful situations, and talking to each other and communicating and producing. And if they can do that, that's what we need in our stores, a completely different mission. But our operators, who are the bread and butter of what makes Starbucks tick, to make that consistent service around the world, they woke up and they saw that, but they had to go behind the gates. That was absolutely a critical part. So where are we now? We've obviously started to make sure that we've done some fun things. We make sure that they're well caffeinated. We want to make sure that if they're serving, they get the good stuff. So that wasn't happening, but a lot of our new military partners said, this is not that hard. I can make a few phone calls, and sure enough, it's just coffee in a plane, and it's on its way. And so we love seeing these pictures. And where we are today, after achieving and exceeding our hiring and honoring goal, well, actually our mission is evolving more into yours. We think that veterans are the best at service, and they still want to serve. In fact, if you look at what you get as an employer, you know this as veterans and as employers. It's an extraordinary value proposition of civic and community engagement. And the one I want to bring to your attention especially is the one on the bottom right-hand corner. Look at the amount of voluntary hours a veteran serves compared to a non-veteran. That is where we're going, and we think that our community service is going to benefit as it's led by veterans and military spouses. And this is how you close the civil-military divide in this country, that cultural divide that especially here in Seattle, we are surrounded by some of the largest, most important bases and facilities in the world, and yet right here in Seattle, maybe it's seafair. Maybe you experience a little bit of the Blue Angels flying by. We think that can change by inviting military veterans to do the community service with non-military groups and put them together. They want to serve. This is Team Rubicon, and this is the direction we're going. We know we're going to keep hiring, we're going to keep honoring, but just like the Rotarians, we think that the future is in service and putting them to serve because they still serve. So happy to answer any questions you have. These are a few places that I would suggest you go if you don't already know about them. You've got some extraordinary facilities and outfits right here. Rally Point 6 down in Lakewood. If you have a transitioning veteran who might need some additional resources, you've got Jamie Collins and Hire America's Heroes, which is absolutely extraordinary. OneMind.org. If you have questions about PTS and the stereotypes around PTS, we want to take them head on. We think that in the civilian world, you've got to let people know that 14% occurrence rate of PTS, it's exactly the same in the civilian world. We think it's really, really important to take on PTS and the misperceptions about PTS. Adopting a unit, and then the mission continues, all about veterans and military spouses doing community service. So with that, I want to say thank you again for the honor of being here. Your service is so important to this community, and we think that as we shape our Veterans and Military Affairs strategy, that we are, and our mission is going to be the same as yours. Thank you. Sir.
Yes, thank you very much for that presentation and what you're accomplishing with veterans and their families. My question is, though you've had not a very long period of time to gather the experience and data, how does the turnover compare with what you normally experience in your Starbucks coffee shops?
Great question. We have hosted 2 national gatherings of employers to try to find out that information, because it is really, really hard to get accurate data. You need time to get that retention rate. We are proud that our retention rate is the same, if not better, than the rest of our industry. And yet at the same time, we recognize that that first job for a transitioning veteran is likely going to be a short one. And don't tell our HR people this, we're okay with that. We are here to help them transition, and that's not the typical way a retailer will approach labor. But if they want to be there for 3 months or a year to learn how, a lot of people come to Starbucks to learn how to run a small enterprise. If they want to open up their own store or their own business, Starbucks is a great place to learn. That's okay with us. So we are concerned about retention. We're meeting the industry average, but we also recognize that our role is to help them. Just like our role is to help young people in their pathway in life. If they're here just for a little while, that's okay.
Hey, John, question from John Hamer.
Hello, John Hamer.
Hey, John, thanks so much. Great presentation. I was not fully aware of all of what you're doing, and it's fabulous. My question is, to what degree are you aware, if any, an effort like this is being replicated in other corporations What about other professions that sadly need it? We can look around, the media, academia, nonprofits, education, that probably could benefit greatly from bridging this same gap. To what degree do you see that happening, or are there any ways you could promote and encourage that?
There are some great examples of Procter & Gamble, USAA, Home Depot, Walmart, Uber, who are, I think, doing the right thing for the right reasons. I would say my previous industry, the tech industry, is getting better. Amazon has a great hiring initiative. Microsoft has a great hiring initiative. Culturally, there is work to do in the tech industry to understand and empathize and understand the value of a vet. There's too much, that's a cultural divide that there's a lot of work to do in the tech industry. That's where I would say there's room for improvement. But they're starting. Is that it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. I learned a lot, and I think we're inspired by the work that Starbucks is doing in this arena. I also was delighted because John has accepted our invitation to join us as a corporate member. So Starbucks will be joining us as a corporate member. And also thank you for the little Starbucks cards that everyone got. So. Well, we've got, I just want to do one quick announcement. Heads up on next week's meeting. We're going to be featuring, again, our Sailor Rotary Service Foundation as we launch our annual campaign, and also featuring the Rotary Foundation, which is at the Rotary International level, which provides money coming back in the form of matching grants. So please come next week. We'll have an opportunity to showcase all the service projects we do. It'll be a fun-filled a meeting. Well, to close this out today, I sat with our Vice President of Programs, Lisa Mayfield, and we looked out on the calendar and said, wow, we need to be observing Veterans Day on November 9th because this Friday is Veterans Day. But we also realized that this was going to be the day after a national election. And I didn't want that occasion to go without comment. So I wanted to reach out to our club's past president, Ralph Monroe, who served for 20 years as our state's Secretary of State, ensuring our electoral process here in our state, to offer us a day after view, and I asked him to share with us a message of unity. So I'm pleased to welcome back to our podium our past president, Ralph Monroe.
Thank you. Let's see if we can make this work. Cease. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. So I want you all to think about where you were. Close your eyes and think about where you were yesterday at noon. Where'd you have lunch? The national polls pointed towards Secretary Clinton. The TV experts told us it would be over early. The networks played and replayed embarrassing statements from the campaign from all sides. And our country assumed that Secretary Clinton would win. And then the American people spoke. From 4 p.m. to midnight, we all got the shock of our lives. I did not vote for either of the leading candidates, but it is fascinating for me to reflect on the roller coaster ride that we've been on. For part of it, for me, was pretty disappointing. America experienced numerous things we had never seen before. Ethics seemed to get tossed aside as we learned facts that we never wanted to know, watched candidates who should have had their mouths washed out with soap, and saw name-calling from all sides of the political platform that sounded more like 4-year-olds. I think the golden rule, the Rotary four-way test, and at least one of the 10 commandments was violated every single day by campaign staffs, surrogates, the candidates themselves, or a member of the media. As a longtime political activist, I used to race home to turn on the television and watch the latest developments. This election cycle, I found myself turning off the television in disgust almost as much as I turned it on. The old saying goes, to the victor go the spoils. I'm not sure what spoils will be left when we still have a deeply divided country and two major political parties that are each split down the middle in philosophy and belief. Whether we like it or not, Americans are increasingly divided. My conservative friends watch Fox, and my liberal friends watch MSNBC. Our communities find Democratic strongholds in the cities of this land, while the GOP draws its strength in more suburban and rural areas. In this election, I found that most everyone I spoke to was voting against a candidate instead of for someone. There is no question that if our country is going to prosper and grow, we must build friendships and relationships across the aisle, across the bridge, across the lake, across the mountains, and across the country. Isolating ourselves in a cocoon of similar beliefs will only make matters worse. Now is a time of redemption, not reincrimination. Since our earliest days as a country, foreign nations have attempted to influence and alter our course. But perhaps this election takes the cake. Many of my fellow Republicans revel in glee with WikiLeaks and email hack jobs that disfavored the other side. But I seriously doubt that the Russians, or whoever it is, are only reading Democrat emails. Our day will come, and it may be sooner than we think. Hopefully, all Americans have now learned that your mother's wise guidance has been altered slightly. Today, she will tell you, don't put anything in an email that you don't want to see on the front page of the local paper. Our country has survived for nearly 250 years. I'm not about to give up on this great land we love. In 72 days, we will inaugurate the ultimate unconventional candidate. We pray for his success. So what can we do as Rotarians as we move into the next era of American politics? Number one, we need to serve as a forum for civil discourse in every community across our land. There is not one other organization that has chapters or clubs in every city and town other than Rotary. We must remain totally nonpartisan, but our microphone should be open to public debate on the issues we face as a nation. Number two, here in Seattle, a thriving world trade community, we need to look back across our nation and analyze what is going on. For many years, we have rightly developed sister cities, sister ports, and friendly relations with places like Singapore, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. This is all well and good, but perhaps it's time we reached out to places like Gary, Indiana, Flint, Michigan, and Youngstown, Ohio, places that have been totally left behind in our quest for cheaper manufacturing and world trade. Locations where people haven't had a decent job in the last decade. What can we help them to find their place in the new economy? Number three, we need to continue to build and support the finest school system in America. Our saving grace is the education system of this city and state. In many ways, our future is not on the stock market or on Microsoft or on every shiny new building downtown. No, our future really lies in the eyes of every third grader in Rainier Valley and every kid like him in White Center and Georgetown. Number four, and finally, as individual Rotarians, we need to serve as a shining example for all young people. They want and seek good mentors. We can fill that role. I can tell you from experience, true happiness is seldom found in the boardroom or on the manufacturing floor. If you really want happiness in your life, take a walk down the street to your local elementary school. You will find more joy than you can imagine reading a story to a second grader, and that child will cherish you the rest of their life. America has been through tough times before. Our founding fathers gave our nation resiliency and flexibility. Now the election is over, but recovery and trust won't come easy. It is time to move forward together. As Rotarians, we have a role to play.